Biz 351 entrepreneurship students, hello, it's Professor Moylan, and this is the final lecture of spring 2020, delivered on June 19. And if you're wondering, wait a minute, the semester's over, the grades are in, why is there a final lecture? Well, I wanted to tie everything together, and I think this lecture you might find interesting because I think it ties together everything that we talked about this semester, because it's a case study of a startup that I pulled together right at the end of the semester. So this is the Pivot to Online College Faculty Training Seminar Business. Now, I had the idea for this on May 10, and it went live today, June 19, so that is 40 days later. So I just want to quickly walk you through what's been going on for the past 40 days on this startup venture. Now, there is the website. I just went live a few minutes ago, and there is the online seminar link off of the website. Now, the address of the website is pivottoonline.com, Professor Moylan's Online Teaching Essentials. And then that online seminar, when you click on that, that takes you to that page, and that is a series of descriptions and links to training videos. There are 39 videos in total. They average a little bit more than 7 minutes and 10 seconds, so it's about 4.8, almost 5 hours of training, but in short chunks there. I got this idea when I was listening to a university president's speech, and the things that jumped out on me were fall semester, uncertainty, faculty training. And that's when I had the light bulb, because as you know, I told you at the beginning of the semester, I'm not teaching anymore. I'm going back after teaching at the college level for 17 years. I'm going back to organizational training, which was the entrepreneurial venture I was doing before I got into teaching at the Scheidler College of Business at the University of Hawaii. And so I was going back to that, to Professor Moylan's Workplace Essentials. And in one of our late April online sessions, I made the offhand crack that this was really bad timing to do that, because no one's doing corporate training as a result of the pandemic. And so I've got to look at what am I going to do and how I'm going to handle this. And then I realized, wait a minute, this maybe presents a great window of opportunity. And it might be similar to that window of opportunity that I saw in 1996. I didn't tell you about this in class, but let me spend just a minute and tell you about this huge opportunity that I had in 1996. At that time, this new thing called the World Wide Web, the information superhighway is what Vice President Al Gore was calling it. The internet, people didn't know what it was all about, but a lot of small businesses were trying to figure out, wait a minute, how might I utilize this to further my business? And so I put together a seminar called Doing Business on the Internet. And for about a 2-year period, just printed money with that Doing Business on the Internet seminar, because people were trying to figure out what was going on there. In fact, this will give you an idea of just how uncertain people were at what this whole internet thing was all about. This was a book that I sold at that seminar, The Internet Yellow Pages, 3rd edition. If you see there, it's a thick yellow page size book, more than 1 million internet yellow pages in print. And look at that testimonial quote: "A must-have book for anyone who wants to explore the vast reaches of the internet. Don't venture into the ether without it." That's from the Wall Street Journal. You want to know what's on the internet, you have to buy a book. That was the mindset back in 1996. It was a brand new world. But so I saw that possibly we have a window of opportunity here. Now, I said a second ago that I went from idea to completion in 40 days. It was really more like 30 days, and the reason is the first 10 days, all I did was think about the business plan. Now, remember our business plan, and we used the SCORE template. So let me just bring that up real quickly. A startup business plan serves several purposes. It can help convince investors or lenders to finance your business. It can persuade partners or key employees to join your company. But this was what I was all about. More importantly, it serves as a roadmap guiding the launch and growth of your business. And basically, for the first 10 days, I was really kind of like thinking about that so-called roadmap. And so, here's what I was going back and forth on. Of course, my overall writing concern was this timing. It's so short, it's so compact. Just got to get it done in a very, very short period of time. And was going back and forth on the business model, who the target market was, the product itself, and then the positioning and pricing, which were intertwined. I got to tell you, that 10 days, things changed a lot. There was a lot of back and forth and up and down. It was a real roller coaster. But after 10 days, I made a few decisions. And so here's what was going on. Now, the business model. There was the possibility of a live seminar via video conference, or an online seminar, which would be micro lecture modules. But then the issue is, do we have distribution behind a paywall? That's going to be harder to do. Or distribution via a PDF? That's going to be a lot easier to do. And what about the target market? Do I go after institutions, the universities and colleges, or do I go after individual professors? Now, with regard to institutions, the number of colleges, well, it depends what data you're looking at. The United States Department of Education says there are 4,298 institutions. That's pretty specific. U.S. News says there's about 1,400. And the reason for that vast differential is U.S. News bunches together. If you're a community college system with 8 campuses, they'll call that one institution. So that's why the difference there. But now we've got a ballpark for how many potential customers are we talking about if we go after the institutions. Now, the pros of going after the institutions. They're highly motivated to train their people. I know the money's going to make it. The check won't bounce. And they're easy to identify and then reach. So those are all good things. However, there's some really bad cons. They might not want to outsource training. They've got smart people on staff. Why pay an outsider when they've got inside people that might be able to do that? And the biggest con by far is this glacial decision making. They, as larger, more bureaucratic entities, just aren't accustomed to making rapid decisions. So they've got this much slower decision making process. That in and of itself, I thought, might absolutely shut the door for going after institutions given our really short time frame. Going after individual professors. Okay, let's start with, how many are we talking about? Well, if you look at a couple of sources, you come up with a pretty, a good number of about 1.5 million. So 1,500,000, potential customers. Now, the pros of going after, individual professors is they can make an instant decision. They don't have to, take it to committee, if you will. The cons, well, they're much harder to identify and reach, and they're possibly reluctant to spend their own money. The instant decision is very likely to be no. So that was a big problem potentially with going after individual professors. So I decided on the product of online micro lectures, and I came up with, I think we need to cover these 8 areas. At the time, I was thinking I was going to do it myself. And so I was just going to brand it Professor Moylan's Online Teaching Essentials the same way that for our entrepreneurship class, I branded it Professor Moylan's Business Essentials. For my Principles of Marketing class, Professor Moylan's Marketing Essentials. But then I had the idea, I'm trying to pull all this together in a very short period of time. What if I come up with one person who's an expert in each of those 8 areas and get that person to put together those components for their area? And so that's when I evolved to this idea. Let's have 8 different experts. I won't do any of them. I'll just do all the business side of things and pull them together. And I'm going to give them an incentive to do this. I'll give each 6% of revenues. Not profits, revenues, because the fixed costs are so small on this. I wanted to let them know that they'll make money from sale number 1. So we'll go with 6% of revenues. Now, how much could that possibly be? Well, let's just look at some ballpark numbers. If we look at a couple of different price points, $29, $39, $49, and we look at some really, really tiny market shares. That's 0.1%. That's not 1% market share, that's 0.1%. Okay, if we sell it for $39, let's just pick the middle price point there, and we only hit 0.1% market share, that's 6% of revenues for you is going to be $3,500. That's not bad for what's probably going to be 3 or 4 or 5 days work at most. But what if we don't get 0.1% market share? What if we get 1% market share? That still is pretty small in the scheme of things. Well, that 1% market share would be worth $35,000. And that's for each of the 8 experts. So I, tried that concept of partnering with the experts. And the thing is, if you're thinking, well, why, give away that money? You've heard me say this before several times in class. I'd rather have 50% of something than 100% of nothing. And so I thought that partnering with 8 experts might be a good way to do it. But in the short period of time, I couldn't get 8 to commit. I do think that with enough time, this would have been the best model if we had, enough time, but we just flat out didn't. So it was back to, I will take care of all of the instruction. Now the positioning, a live seminar via video conference, an online seminar, micro lecture modules, those basically position themselves. It's what they are. However, I was thinking to myself, and this was back when I was thinking of the 8 experts, instead of calling it an online seminar, let's call it a virtual conference. We'll have a keynote address on pedagogy. We'll have breakout sessions on each of the different technology components. That could have charged a much higher price point, by positioning it as a video conference as opposed to an online seminar. But yeah, pricing is obviously a big issue here because this is an intellectual property. An intellectual property pricing where the variable costs are 0 because it's all digital. You really want to look at pricing because you've got huge flexibility with what you might do. This, of course, is the pricing situation that software products, video games, music, video, they all have to deal with. With a digital marketing budget of $5,000, even at a low price levels, my break even was 607 units sold. I kept coming back to that 607 units break even. That was just so small. We've got 1.5 million, potential size of the market, and I only need 607 to break even, and that's with spending $5,000 on a digital marketing budget. But I just keep coming back to the short period of time, the difficulty in getting this out. And so that's when I made the decision, okay, I will go with a freemium business model. Freemium, where some is free, but there's a premium component. So the Pivot to Online micro lectures, they're free. In section 8, there's 8 sections, sections 1 through 7. Those are all free Pivot to Online micro lectures. In section 8, I ask for feedback. How did the online seminar work for you? I'm going to get valuable information from that feedback. Also, I've got a place there where you can hire for live seminar. So that would be an upsell. And another place where if you want Principles of Marketing curriculum, you can get that. That would be an upsell as well. But I had to develop the PTO, Pivot to Online Micro Lectures, and then the distribution. The nice thing now with going with a freemium is we can distribute this just with the website address and the PDF file because we don't have to worry about how are we getting paid for this. And if people have a positive experience with this, we can get good word of mouth of further distribution out there. So once that decision was made, now it's developed the product, and that's what I spent the last 30 days on. And just a couple of comments here: mission statement, the product, and then distribution. You heard me say a lot of negative things about mission statements because in most organizations, the mission statement is not worth the paper it's printed on because it's been, a politicized process and it becomes incredibly watered down. But unbelievably enough, I actually had a mission statement for this project. And I actually printed it out and put it on my wall right next to my computer because I had to keep coming back to this. Perfect in October is worthless. Good in June is great. We have just such a short period of time to get this out. So I got cranking on my Pivot Online micro lectures, 39 total, and got all those done in a 30-day time frame. And now it's time for distribution. I'm emailing to a relatively extensive email list that I have built up of college faculty and administrators over the past few years. And hopefully that will then get further spread via electronic word of mouth, WOM, word of mouth. But if somebody gets an email and they like it and they send it on, we'll call that electronic word of mouth. One of the people that I was talking with about doing one of these sections, when I told her that I was going to go with this freemium model, she said, I hate to see you give it away. But I don't really see it that way. And the reason is, with the freemium model, there's free component for people, but there's also a premium potential. There's the opportunity for upsell, but there's valuable research to be gleaned via that feedback form. And I think I can really benefit from that research. And here's why I say that. The pandemic will change education forever. I have absolutely no doubt about that. It will change it at the college level, and it will change it at the corporate training level. And so this business that I had been expecting to get back into now, which is in person at the organizational level, just isn't happening. And who knows when we'll be back to and I know we're all tired of hearing this term, the new normal, but it won't be what it was like before. So I won't be, going back to doing things the way I did before. And I've got to figure out how to evolve Professor Moylan's Workplace Essentials. Remember what I said with regard to taking your business idea and running with it? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Hey, I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're all staying safe. Have a great summer.